Hello and welcome to this special programme brought to you by Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs. I'm Jayne Constantinis. Now, HMRC wants to consult as widely as possible with you, the UK's tax and accountancy profession, as it continues to develop modern powers for the 21st century. In today's programme, we're looking at the Working with Tax Agents consultation document published out the budget. And I'm delighted to be joined by Dave Hartnett, the Permanent Secretary for Tax, and by Simon Norris, who's head of the review of HMRC powers. Thank you very much to both of you for coming in. And of course we're live, so if you have a question, type it in the box on your screen, send it to us with your name, of course. We'll get through as many as we can during the course of the show. I must say, though, that we've had literally dozens of questions already in. Many of them are along similar themes, so we've grouped some of those together. We'll get through as many as we possibly can. And of course, we can't discuss individual cases. So let's start with the basics, really. Tell us about the consultation document.
I think there's three things I'd like to say. Firstly, the document deals with tax agents, and we acknowledge right from the start the vital role that they play in the UK tax system. Basically, ladies and gentlemen, we couldn't do it without you. Secondly, there is an area with a group within the tax profession, a very small group, who don't keep themselves up to date or get things wrong, and a tiny, tiny minority who actually go across the line of what's legal. And it's only right, as with other areas of the tax system, that those people are policed. And thirdly, it's about actually getting a better relationship between ourselves and tax agents, a working relationship where we really do trust one another.
Now, it's interesting that you raise that as your third point, because, Dave, I'm guessing that many people feel this kind of consultation actually undermines your relationship with tax agents. What would you say to that?
I'd say I'm really puzzled by the notion that it could do that. Why are we doing it now is, I think, the crucial question. And the answer to that is we've worked hard with tax agents and their representative bodies at improving the relationship over the last year or two. I think it would be fair, looking back further, to say that it hadn't been as good as it had been in the past. We've identified the things we need to do to improve our contact centres for tax agents, to get together more often locally to deal with issues. And I see this consultative document as a very positive thing, and I don't see this risk of undermining at all.
And you started to talk about why now. Why specifically now?
Well, it feels like the right time. We're looking at all the powers of HMRC. Why did we start doing that? Because two departments merged with different powers. We didn't want to pick up the powers of one department rather than the other. So this is new powers, modern powers for the 21st century. And given the crucial role of tax agents in the administration of the tax system, we had to get to our relationship with tax agents. Internationally, there's been a lot of discussion about that, much of which the UK has led. This felt like the right time.
Simon, you've acknowledged the great work that most tax agents do, but there is a degree of cynicism from them with regard to an exercise like this. A lot of people think you're just paying lip service to it, not just you, but many such consultation documents, and that you've actually already decided what you're going to do. Is that the case?
Most certainly it's not the case, and in fact we've been working on this project for 4 years now, and I think this is the 17th document we've actually issued to the general public. And what we do, it's not just about consultation. We will hold workshops with the representative bodies of the accountancy profession and tax agents, face-to-face meetings, dozens of them, and a further consultation. And all through this process, the proposals will be worked up in tandem with tax agents. And that's what we've done before, and received a lot of praise from the agent community about the way we have changed things in light of what they've said.
And when will the process be finished? When can people expect to see the results of it?
This consultation will finish on the 7th of August. There will probably be another consultation in the autumn, and we'd be looking to probably tying things up in the Finance Bill next year.
Okay. Now, the word accuracy, and I have looked at the consultation document, the word accuracy comes up quite a lot. And, you know, the phrase pot calling the kettle black springs to mind. What would you say to that?
I'm not sure who's the pot and who's the kettle here, frankly. We make mistakes. Sometimes we're let down by our systems, and I wish that didn't happen. But tax agents make mistakes as well. I want us to be able to learn from the mistakes we all make and improve the system. I certainly don't want us to be tough on people who make innocent errors, and I'd like tax agents sometimes to be a little more understanding that our people can make mistakes as well. The risk we have to manage is that if you end up somewhere in the country with a tax agent who is serially making mistakes, we want to help them improve. We want to help them direct, we want to help them through their professional body if they have one. Similarly, I want tax agents to tell us about our mistakes so we can improve too. So pots and kettles doesn't feel right to me.
And in fact, that leads me into a question that was sent in earlier that echoes many others. It appears to be one-way traffic. When are we going to get the opportunity to, a little bit facetious obviously, to bill HMRC for our time spent sorting out your mistakes?
People can do that now, not for sorting out mistakes, but if we get something seriously wrong, and one of our customers, a taxpayer, incurs a lot of expense, then we have the power to compensate them for that. What we won't compensate is if we're not helped to understand something and we make mistakes as a result. If, sometimes it's like drawing teeth to get information. If it's like that, that's a bit different. But if we make a serious mistake, we compensate.
Why is it like drawing teeth? Is it fear? Are people afraid of making contact with your department?
I think it's sort of a given that Simon and I probably aren't the most loved men in the country, given our calling. But I think if you look back over time, there's been a great history of cat and mouse tactics, probably on both sides, if sides is the right term. And we're trying to break that. We want tax to seem as simple as possible for taxpayers. Tax agents have got a role in that, we've got a role in that, and to condemn cat and mouse tactics and the sort of ritual dance, if I can mix my metaphors, that follows, we want to condemn that to the past and work in a different way.
Okay. Another question in about similar sort of theme. There appears to be an increasingly cultural perception in HMRC that all agents, not just a few bad apples, are a major problem. Do you think that's where this feeling of suspicion comes from?
I just don't see that at all. Again, it's something which we've made quite clear, that we recognise that an agent has to represent their client, and part of that is probably being adversarial, actually being strong in supporting your client. Now that is part of a way we expect people to act. Agents wouldn't be doing their job if they didn't, and there are times that we have to be forceful as well. But I think that's got, I mentioned earlier about a relationship of trust. If you trust one another, then you can do that and still not break that trust, I think. It's important. So I don't think that's an issue at all.
Yeah, no, that's a very different issue, isn't it, to the bad apples that we're talking about. And does that then touch slightly on the avoidance versus... what's the other word?
Evasion.
Oh, that's the word. Avoidance, evasion debate.
There's more heat and passion in this debate than I think anything else that's around. We're accused regularly of muddling the two up or not being prepared to distinguish the two. I think they distinguish themselves really easily. Evasion is about dishonesty, it's about concealment, and all sorts of other things that you'd never want to see. And some dishonest taxpayers and some dishonest tax advisors will go to prison. It's as simple as that. Avoidance is about using the tax system in ways that was never intended, about juxtaposing particular parts of the tax code, and about reducing tax bills. Lots of people might see that as reprehensible, but I mean, it's not dishonest activity, and that's the crucial difference.
Thank you. And I must just say that we're getting a lot of questions coming in, so we're getting through as many as we can during our 20 minutes. Forgive us if we don't get to yours. We're also trying to group together questions that are along a similar theme. And we've got one here that reflects that as well. How will you make sure that HMRC fully understands the role and breadth of knowledge of agents' work? Do you feel that you do that already?
I think we do, and also increasingly we're using secondments into agents' offices, and we're very grateful for firms of agents that are prepared to do that. But people like Dave and myself, over the last few years, we've been out in getting to small groups of accountants through the various tax organisations, talking to them, debating with them, and understanding what their problems are. I mean, first time we did it, I think it was a need for flak jackets. It's not quite so bad now.
You are allowed out of the office then?
Yes, so occasionally, yes, with a minder.
I have a fond memory of doing a presentation to about 200 tax agents in Huddersfield on a change proposed in the tax system. And I remember a young woman standing up and saying she'd been in practice for 6 years, she'd got a good business model, and then explaining how the change would actually damage her business model. And I understood for the first time the concern we'd heard from others as well. And it's absolutely vital for us that tax agents tell us what's going to work and what doesn't work. Not what they like and what they don't like, but what can be made to work as well. And they're important. And now people will listen.
And that's what you're hoping to get from this consultation
Absolutely.
process, yeah. Let's have a look at the next question. There's a lot of frustration out there in the time it takes HMRC to firstly respond to requests for information from agents and the formal responses. Some talk of it taking up to 2 months. What can be done about that?
It does take us time to reply. Some of the questions are actually nearly impossibly difficult, and sometimes agents ask us questions to which we will never know the answer. We get questions like, how do I convert a personal pension into a company pension fund? Well, our people don't know the answers to that. I don't want them looking to the answers, and I want agents to understand that it's not our job to answer that. Having said that, we get asked other questions which we should answer faster. One of the biggest issues for us at the minute is the service out of our contact centres. A little while ago it was pretty poor, it's rapidly improving, but we want to work with agents so that everyone better understands how to make use of our contact centres and to stream the really difficult questions that might take time and otherwise to help agents get the question on the table quickly, get the answer off the table quickly.
Yeah, that actually slightly answers a question that we had in earlier, or a point really. There's a lack of good service at your call centres. Before you closed local tax offices, inspectors knew which advisors were reliable. We're all human and we all make mistakes sometimes. So I suppose what that's talking about a much more local approach where people know individuals. Has it become too impersonal?
I think there's two issues though. One is that actually, are we looking back with rose-coloured glasses at the days of the local offices and, as it was called, the inspector's nose, that you could sniff things out? I don't think we were quite as good as we were then, as we thought we were then. And now we've moved over to a more risk-based approach. We're assessing risk and doing that on a national basis, and I think that's going to be a better way of doing it.
And tomatoes tasted better in those days.
They did
as well,
indeed.
didn't
They did indeed.
They tasted
yes,
of something.
Yes. And the call centres, agents now do have a dedicated line into our call centres, and I think we're getting something like a 90% rate back on people saying that it's a good service.
Okay, great. Another question here which you might want to think about. Are there plans to create a distinction between firms which have professional qualifications and a good record and those that do not? A system where you had some sort of grading would help. Any plans to implement that?
We get asked this almost every day. I think there's a perception in the big wide world that qualified tax advisors with a qualification are good and tax advisors without a qualification are uniquely bad. And it's just not like that. Different taxpayers need different services, and there's a place for everybody. If I look at one of our bigger problems at the minute, and sadly we've got it, is fraud in repayments. There are tax advisors with qualifications at the hearts of some of those frauds, and there are tax advisors without qualifications. I think it's probably fair to say that some unqualified tax advisors might be better following other professions, and I think as we go forward we're going to help them do that more. We might think at some stage in the future at how we manage risk with tax agents better than we do now. We'll want to talk to tax agents about that and get their ideas. We don't want to do it on our own. But we've no real plans to say qualified over here, unqualified over there.
Okay. A question here which has reflected what a lot of people are commenting on. When does Mr. Hartnett plan to exercise his renowned zeal for tax gathering on MPs?
Gosh, I'm really glad I've got a fan club out there. Well, Mr. Hartnett has no particular plans because we haven't dealt with MPs different from any other taxpayers. We have special security arrangements in relation to MPs, but they get inquired into in exactly the same way as other taxpayers. So no special zeal to be applied there.
Just a general zeal, obviously. Just going back to the consultation document and the process again, can you briefly please talk us through the specific areas that are covered in it, where people might have an opportunity to comment and make suggestions?
I think one area is how we can actually work better with tax agents. Should we be sharing more of the risks that we know about with them? Should we be looking at some of their processes and helping them design processes to get it right for taxpayers? Clearly, when we get into the area of the agents who may not be doing a good job, I think there are some real issues about how does the profession itself, what can they do with such agents? Should there be penalties? Should there be other sorts of sanctions? How do we? There's a whole range of possibilities in there, and I think it's about looking at what will work and what will make sense for people. And certainly we recognise that in all the consultations that we do, there are safeguards, and I think there have to be additional safeguards here, because very easy if we start investigating an agent's client place for them to lose their reputation. So I mean, we need to avoid that as much as possible. What are the ways around that?
Okay. Can I just add one or two things in this sense? Clearly, our document has managed to spook some tax agents. We'd love to answer their questions because we don't want anyone spooked by it. Clearly, for another group, there's sort of a Pavlovian response to anything we produce, and they really, really want to know what we're truly up to, because clearly we're up to something other than what's in the document. And then the third, and by far the largest group, would be really upset if we didn't consult them about something that's as important as this to them. So we're managing quite a mixed audience here. We're trying to manage a mixed audience, but we want to hear from them all, particularly if we can disabuse anyone of misconceptions about what we're trying to do.
Okay, well, here's somebody sending a question in. In fact, this again reflects a number of similar questions about tax repayments being subject to security checks. These take too long, and it's not unusual to have to remind a tax office that they've overlooked to actually issue said repayment. Any thoughts on that?
I'll pick that one up. And this is a slightly sad story, which is a tale of our times. The tax system in the UK and in many other countries now is under attack in a way that it's never quite been under attack before, from people creating false repayment claims. I mean, one I saw just the other day, our people showed me, someone who sent in a tax return, which wasn't sent to them, so who knows where the tax return came from, which showed income of £100,000, from which £40,000 had been deducted. It showed losses from a trade that we knew nothing about, and asked us to repay the £40,000 tax, setting the losses against the income. The whole thing was bogus. So our repayment checks are vital. We've had to increase them because of the scale of the attack on the tax system. We're looking to refine them in any and every way we can. And as I said earlier on, I think it just bears repeating, for all those honest, and this is the overwhelming majority of tax agents out there, some of their colleagues in some places are at the centre of these frauds. And for those good tax agents, for their clients, our customers, and for the tax administration, we have got to stop this and find out who's perpetrating it. So I'm afraid it's an important part of protecting the country.
Okay, well, I hope that answers that question, because we've had a number of people asking along a similar sort of lines. How radical do you expect the findings from the consultation document to be, and will you be prepared to implement them?
I hope they will be radical. I think some of the things we've done over the last 3 or 4 years, being the first tax administration to introduce suspended penalties, I think things like that have been radical. And I really hope that people do come up with interesting and useful ideas, because that's the way to progress. I mean, this is about having a system that will last for the next 25 years or more.
Great. Good to hear. Another question here. I note that 4 round tables are being held about the Working with Tax Agents consultation document in London, Nottingham, Leeds and Glasgow. Are there going to be any more in other parts of the country so that more people can attend, in brackets, not everybody can afford the travelling time and expense to the other venues?
I'm pleased we've got 4, and the bodies working with us on those, I'm really grateful to. I'd like to hold more, and we may try to do that. But I mean, the question brings out one of the big issues. People keep saying to us, "You're actually consulting too much now. When are we going to get our work done?" And we understand that. So we're trying to strike a happy medium here. May not quite got it right yet. We will get it right, but very conscious of that travelling time and by implication money cost issue that was raised.
Can I just add one thing? It's relatively easy for us to get members of the professional bodies and talk to them. It is really difficult to get to the people who aren't members of bodies, the individual tax agents out there. And if any of them want to contact us, we would be very glad to get a group together to get their perspective on things.
And how should they contact you?
Using, I think you'll be putting up the web
website, the web address at the end. Fantastic. And in fact, that leads beautifully on to a question that's just come in. How will the many experienced agents who are not members of a professional body be affected by the review?
I would expect them to be affected by the review just in the same way that those who are, by and large, those who are in a professional body. We should not be distinguishing between them. We cannot under the law, of course.
I think it's really important to say, given that question, that I can't envisage a world when there'll be one rule for those who are qualified and member of a body and one rule for those who aren't. The taxpayer, our customers, are our focus. Agents are the people who help them. And I think if we tried to segregate the rules in relation to the agents in that way, we'd end up in a horrible mess.
Okay. We're just about out of time. We've got through a large number of questions, which is fantastic. Just to sum up now, if you would, what are you hoping that people will take away from this consultation exercise, as it were? What do you want them to do now?
Read it.
Read the document.
And take the message that we really, as in other previous consultations, we really are open about what the answer is going to be.
Yeah. For me, it is that tax agents, as we've said 3 or 4 times in the last few minutes, are a crucial part of tax administration in the UK and in other countries. As Simon says, read it, but respond. Let's have the ideas. Many tax agents have years of experience of making the system work, and sometimes you do actually have to make it work. We want to hear about it.
Great. Thank you very much indeed,
welcome.
both of you, for coming in to talk to us about it. And thank you for joining us as well. And to everybody who sent in a question, we've had dozens of them. Thank you very much. If you'd like more information, or if you've got any feedback on today's show, then go to the address at the bottom of the screen. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.